Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to McCants Ballpark, the home of the greatest four, I can't believe I'm saying this, the greatest, I did not write this, okay? The greatest four-man baseball team known to man, the Major League Interns. Now, first, before we go any further, take a moment right now to silence your phones. That's number one. Number two, students, please make sure you sign in. Adults, if you want to sign in, you can as well, but I can't promise extra credit, but it certainly won't hurt. The four individuals that you are about to hear from are going to explain and walk you through their internships with the Washington Wild Things and the Waynesburg University Sports Information Department. Your lineup: their power hitter, known for hitting not only fastballs to dead center, but also his diverse work done with Waynesburg's Sports Information Department, Darian Allensworth. In the hole is a man who is a true leader on the team and one who is not only great with writing a game recap and working the scoreboard, but doing both at the same time. Danny Dimes Rogers. The skipper for the team, presenting last, but not last in our hearts, a individual who has worn many hats, sometimes at the same time, working with the Wild Things, with a mustache that, I can't believe I'm saying this, is better than Chris Dugan's. His words, not mine. Ethan Spazarski. But our laid-off batter, ladies and gentlemen, known not only for throwing 104 on his day off, but also known for his masterful work with the mobile camera. He is the Wild Thing. Ladies and gentlemen, our leadoff hitter, Mr. Seth Adams. Play ball!
Ever since I was a kid, I've always dreamed of working in sports, but more specifically, baseball. I've had a love for baseball my entire life, and that love has never changed. And this summer, I got to step foot inside that dream as a media relations intern for the Washington Wild Things. So my agenda for today, I'm going to talk about my supervisor and the role he played in my internship, my duties and responsibilities and break down each one, the challenges I faced, the goals I set, and my final thoughts and key takeaways. First, my supervisor was Kyle Dawson, Waynesburg alumni, Vice President of Baseball Operations, and the team's broadcaster for the Wild Things. The roles he played, I reported to him every day, approximately an hour and a half to 2 hours before the game, and I would see him somewhere in that range when he had a little bit of time to see all the other interns, and he would tell me my role for that day. He also critiqued my work, which was one of the biggest roles he played. I had a lot of time where I was writing for the Wild Things, so he would critique my work and help me get better. Next, my duties and responsibilities. I was a scoreboard operator, I worked on the media guide, I wrote recaps, and I was a camera operator. I spent a good amount of time on each, and I didn't favor one over the other, about 10 games apiece and 8 for the recaps. First, I'll begin with scoreboard operation. This was my first duty with the Wild Things and was a good way to get my feet wet. I got to see how the press box worked, and I worked it as a doubleheader for the exhibition games that I started the internship. This job is very similar to Waynesburg and with the baseball. As you can see in the bottom right, all you have to do is who's at bat, the count, outs, run total, hit total, and errors. And then also, the new thing that I had to learn was how to put the runs for each individual inning. Other than that, it was not that hard and was the easiest task by far. However, this did require non-stop attention. You cannot miss a pitch, you cannot miss an out, you cannot miss anything. If you do, you will hear it from others in the press box. Even the fans will yell up to you, hey, like, your count's wrong, and then you would have to fix it. Next, I'll talk about the media guide. I worked on players' information mainly, wrote their bios and their highlights. As you can see with all the other pictures there, like what side of the plate they batted, how they threw, height, weight, where they were born, age, all that kind of stuff. You'd also have to do some game highs. What game in their career did they have the most hits, home runs, RBIs, and you would have to look through individual statistics and data to find that information. You would also have to do highlights, so just how they batted over there all that season, did they win any awards, anything like that. And then also writing their bio, which is not too much different from the highlights. It's kind of just compressing it all together and just figuring out what's important for that writing. This required a lot of research. Some players were harder to find information on than others, so it kind of made a challenge of really doing a deep dive into figuring out the information we needed. There was even one page that I had to go on, and it was all in French. So that was really difficult to navigate and figuring out how to go around that. By the end, the other interns and we had a 130-page Google Doc of all the players' information and a little bit of other information, but that wasn't the size of the media guide, as it is well over 200 pages long. And the days were long when I worked on the media guide, but they were also fast. You're just sitting behind a computer all day. You're not getting to see any of the games. However, when you got about one player done, your day was already half over. So when I got 2 done, the day was practically over. Next was my favorite task, recap writing. Getting to just sit there with my computer and watching the game and just writing as the game went along was the best task by far. The main difference with the recap writings at the Wild Things and Waynesburg's is that they are just straightforward and there are no quotes. You don't have to go and talk to players or coaches. All you're doing is just writing the big plays that happened, the scoring, and if the pitchers had a good day, and anything big that needed to be put in the writing. However, one of the biggest challenges was that the game would change on a dime. There was one game that I remember in particular, was writing and the game was just going along, got to about the 8th inning, and the Wild Things scored 8 runs. So had to waver around that, and it made me have to rewrite practically the top of my writing. But it was good. It was a fun challenge, but managed to get through it. And the most rewarding thing was seeing it posted on the Wild Things website after every game. Seeing my name attached to that writing on their website was probably the most rewarding thing I could see. And I would just read over it and just see how I could get better every time. Next is camera operation. This was a very new task for me. I've not worked much camera here, if really at all. So we were set up on the first base, the third base side, and high home. I worked first base and third base the most, and high home I worked about once, maybe twice, and it was by far the most challenging for me because I had to follow the ball, and I was not good at that at all. And ultimately going into that, I had no idea how the camera even worked. I remember the first day the camera was set up for me by all the other Waynesburg interns, and I had no idea how to even turn the camera on. So it took me a couple minutes to figure out where the switch was, and ultimately I got through it, but it was definitely one of the scarier moments of, wow, like this is so new to me. And ultimately, I also did not know how to set one up. One of the first times I did it, I was putting up the tripod, and the legs were all different lengths, and trying to get that to work was a sight to be seen for sure. So I worked this position about 10 times, and I had about 5 or 6 different directors, which it was challenging to figure out what they wanted, but they helped walk me through it. And it was a good time ultimately, because about 3 or 4 of those were Waynesburg interns, and Josh Klingon. He was also there doing it. So that was really fun to have him on there and all the other Waynesburg guys and just being able to talk to them through this task. However, by the end, I knew exactly how to set up a camera, and I was actually able to teach other interns who needed to know how to do it, how to set it up, and I became better at my camera work. I caught a triple play in the bottom left, and on the right side, I had clips of a walk-off grand slam posted on the TikTok of the Wild Things. Those were very rewarding days to be able to catch clips like those, considering I had not done much camera work before this. Next, the challenges. There were long days. The typical day for us was about 5 hours. Sometimes it would be an extra hour or 2 if there was rain, which we had a lot of rain delays, and Seth talked about it earlier with Father's Day. how we had to work a doubleheader from 12 to 10 o'clock at night. So it was a long day, and we've had many of those. And ultimately, the middle pitcher caught us at one of those rain delays. We were just getting food and having a good time and working through it. Next, the commute. I drove an hour and 10 minutes just to get to the park. I drove an hour and 10 minutes back every night. It was definitely challenging some nights because they'd be a lot longer than others, but ultimately I worked through it, and some nights were good, some nights were bad, just depending on how long we were there. The final challenge we faced, we had skeleton crews right towards the end when all the other interns would leave that already had their hours, and it was a lot tougher because we weren't able to go to different positions, but we still made through it, had a good time, and it was a lot of good time spent with all the Waynesburg guys. Next, I'll talk about my goals that I had set. First was to gain professional experience. I definitely felt that I achieved that one, being able to work in a press box and to write for the Wild Things and have my writings on their website was by far the best professional experience that I've gained with them. Next was to make new connections. Ultimately, I definitely achieved that very well. I met a lot of good people from other schools, got closer with Kyle, and ultimately it was a good time. Next was to work as many tasks as possible. Working camera was definitely not on my list of things that I was going to work, but we were there and we did it. And finally was to reassure my future in this field, and that was absolutely achieved. There's no place I'd rather be than working in sports, and I love what I did over the summer with the Wild Things. Finally, I want to talk about my key takeaways. First, be adaptive. Be able to work where people tell you, don't complain, and just work through it. Next, always represent your brand. That was one of the biggest things for me. Not only am I representing my name, but I'm also representing the school, sports information, the comm department, everything. Have a high standard and keep it that way. And finally, being able to wear multiple hats. There was a game that I wrote a recap and did the scoreboard at the same time. It was a challenging day, but I got through it, and ultimately it was probably one of the best experiences that I've had. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
You said that running the scoreboard required nonstop attention. Did you have trouble staying focused on that?
Some days, yes. Your mind would just go to one little place, and there'd be a pitch come through, and I'm like, I don't know what that was. So I'd yell over to Josh, hey, what was that pitch? He was like, it's a ball, and I'd put it in. Andy.
Related to the scoreboard, the game, the picture you had up, did that end in a no-hitter?
I don't know if it did. I don't think so. I think they got really close at times, but they couldn't get over the end. Right.
So I know you said you just picked up camera work. Would you like to do that maybe in your future if it arrived, came?
To be honest, probably not. Probably not.